So you heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi say, for thousands of years to come, people will look at this Dharm Dhwaja. And when they look at this saffron flag, the conversation would be about justice for all, of Ram Rajya. That was one of the thoughts even in India's independence struggle when Mahatma Gandhi spoke of Ram Rajya ki or. And what is that Ram Rajya? The Prime Minister also incidentally also referred to getting rid of that Macaulay mindset. 1835, Thomas Macaulay spoke of creating this entire breed of Indians who would be Indian in blood but British by nature. To be clerks in their office, to think everything Indian was inferior, everything British was superior. The Prime Minister says the quest is now to get rid of that inferiority complex. What is this Macaulay mindset? There's a raging debate on it. Joining me on this India First special broadcast is a very well-respected activist, political leader and author, Saira Shah Halim. Also with me on this broadcast is Dr. Ajay Alok, a medical doctor, the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Deshratan Nigam is a lawyer and an activist. And Saira Shah Halim, I want to begin by asking you your take on the Dharm Dhwaja going up and the Prime Minister referring to getting rid of this Macaulay mindset in about 10 years from now, when it will be 200 years of Macaulay coming to India and changing the education system.
Good evening, Gaurav. We need to really appreciate our Honorable PM Modi's, capacity to engage in clickbait, firstly, let me tell you. Now, here the challenge today is in Macaulay. It is actually inequality, because modern India's educational crisis stems not from Macaulay's 19th century policy, but from the 21st century neglect. And that neglect happens to be the underfunded schools, the corruption in the education system, linguistic biases against regional languages, systematic inequities that keep creeping up time to time again. And now when PM Modi talks about reversing Macaulayism, it is a simple rhetoric, okay? And because there are greater challenges ahead, whereas we talk about our curriculum stagnation, whether it is teacher shortages, whether it is privatization of education. So now I think it's become a very convenient way of digging out an old Englishman. And I think Mr. Nehru must be smiling from the skies, because for once he's not being criticized, and the person who's being criticized happens to be a dead Englishman. And as BJP's policies keep failing time and time and again, Lord Curzon will be talked about, Mountbatten will be talked about, and a lot of dead Englishmen who will be talked about, of course. Because here, let me iterate that the demand for English education did not come from Indian Muslims. It came from Indians. Okay, let us be very clear here. And here, if you look at it, Macaulay did not impose English education. There was a petition filed from Madras and Bengal. And in 1839, the Madras petition clearly said that there are a lot of people, it was signed by 70,000 Indian citizens who said that we want English education, because what they sought was access to modern knowledge and opportunity.
You're calling it a clickbait by the Prime Minister and not a civilizational moment, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi referred to. I want to bring in Dr. Ajay Alok into this conversation. Dr. Alok, respond. A civilizational transition or transformation taking place, or is this just a clickbait to criticize another dead Englishman and not focus on problems of today?
Actually, PM today never wanted to politicize the event, because if you remember Macaulay, then we have to remember the followers of Macaulay, who kept on pursuing the policy, who kept on pursuing the same education policy which what Macaulay delivered to India. Today, when we have a new education policy, you were talking of a regional bias and regional language bias. Today, we are conducting exams in more than 26 languages all across the country. Even in the local languages, the student can learn medicine, engineering, and all the subjects, which were not happening earlier. This is a transitional changes only. What India has seen in the last 11 years, the dramatic change, what is happening to us, what is happening to the country. We are no more only the snake charmers. Now we are charming the world. This is the transition what has happened in the last 11 years. And PM definitely emphasized, विरासत के बिना, अपनी विरासत के बिना कभी भी मजबूती नहीं आती. So what were our traditions? Imagine in a country like India, we had to fight for 500 long years just to build this Ram temple. We don't take pride in this. Who were delaying it? तारीख पे तारीख कौन लगाता था? Why there was no will? That yes, sentiments of 80 crores, 90 crores, now 100 crores, Hindus must be respected in this country, which was not respected? Why is appeasement politics continuously? What was the tremendous need to treat Hindus as a second-grade citizen in their own country? All these things is transition only, which is happening. The awakening of Hindu sentiments all across India, all across globe, is nothing but transition. The new education policy, the new India, which people are seeing and which world is watching and observing,
that's a very pertinent
but
point you make
transitional
there.
India and changing.
Okay, so you're saying there's a transformation taking place. Before I bring in Deshratan Nigam, Saira Shah Halim, respond to a pertinent point being made by Dr. Ajay Alok. What was being said earlier was just rhetoric. You know, examination for various fields was only in English or certain languages. Now it's in so many regional languages. More children can grow, more children can rise. They can take these entrance examinations in their own languages. So when you say one language is being imposed, isn't that rhetoric when the reality is there's equal encouragement to many, many more languages so that we have many more engineers and doctors taking exam in their regional languages and rising, not what Macaulay said?
So I'd like to tell my respected panelists firstly that the Macaulay system of education was not a monolith of colonial slavery if you look into history, because we need to look at history pragmatic, right? Now, if you look at Macaulay's Minute on Indian Education, 1835, it must be read in its actual historic context and not a fragment of imagination, because you need to put things into perspective. At that time, the existing educational system was riddled in deeply hierarchical prejudices. And also, if you look at it, it was reserved for upper castes and males. And with rote learning, it often ignored the meaning or comprehension. And even before Macaulay came in, because Macaulay came in much later, there were a lot of British officials, okay, that had criticized this mechanical rote memorization without understanding. So what Macaulay did is he intervened, through paternalistic methods, introduced secular and rational methods of education. He introduced, a scientific rational. He introduced mathematics, philosophy, logic that broke from the caste-bound pedagogy system of education. So if you call this a slavery in action, it is a distortion of history. However colonial it might be, it did modernize education. Let's at least accept that.
Were Indians taught our own culture, our own history, our own, the way we were coming up? And let me bring in Deshratan Nigam into this. Or were we taught everything British is superior, everything good came from the West, and Indians were only dirty brown masses? It's the white man who had the burden to uplift them. Deshratan Nigam, respond to Saira Shah Halim, who says the right wing is looking at Macaulay through jaundiced lenses.
Gaurav, in fact, anything negative about Macaulay can be whitewashed by saying, please read it in the context. And what is the context? Macaulay wanted a certain class of people who should, in appearance, be Indians, but otherwise should be British, and who would be as a kind of go-between between the masses that they are governing. They never taught Indian systems, Indian history or heritage. And the whole problem, and they were the ones, through Macaulay and subsequently, they were the ones who created that Hindu-Muslim divide that resulted in ultimately the formation of Pakistan. The fact remains that the Gurukul system that we had, the entire 6 systems of philosophy, which is based on logic, facts and logic, was taught there, which was discarded. The Gurukul system, where the science, education, culture, heritage, everything was taught from a very early stage, was destroyed through the Macaulay system of education. He was very clear in his attitude. If you have to make Indians' mind set as a slave, please make them like British. And the sense of inferiority was ingrained among the Indians. The sati system which people talk about never had any sanction from our scriptures, but it was so highlighted. The Johar certainly was there because the women had to save themselves from the Mughals invasion. The fact remains that the communist leftist mindset, which they are still very troubled about, although they are becoming very extinct now, the new education policy that Dr. Alok talked about clearly is one of the few steps which is for decolonizing Indian mindset. The Ram Mandir also.
Saira Shah Halim wants to respond. Saira Shah Halim wants to respond.
I'll be very clear.
I'll come to the Ram Mandir aspect in just a moment. Okay, yes.
No one is against blended education, okay? Now, again, I'm saying it is very important to know about Indian culture and history. At the same time, again, I'm iterating that the Macaulay system was co-created with Indian aspirations, and the demand for English education came from Indians themselves. Macaulay didn't impose English education upon a resistant population. Again, let's go back into history and look, at the facts. In fact, people in Bengal and Madras.
What Macaulay did in 1835 is not being debated here. It's the Macaulay mindset of today that is being debated, Saira Shah Halim. Even today, if you speak English, you are considered highly educated. Jobs are oriented in such a way. Jobs are oriented in such a way.
How?
The new education policy has just come in, but I'm talking about what has come in. What has come in by glorifying invaders for sure. I'm sure, Doctor, you tell me, Saira Shah Halim, should Babur be glorified as an invader and killer of the original inhabitants of this land?
No one is talking
you tell
about
me,
any
is that correct?
I'm sorry. No one is talking about any glorification. I'm simply iterating that history needs to be looked at pragmatically.
I have been taught, and I'm a student of history, I have been taught Akbar the Great. No, Saira Shah Halim, hear me out, madam. Akbar the Great, you and I, when we went to school, we were taught Akbar the Great. We were never taught how Akbar carried out the massacre at Chittor, how he weighed the Janayus that we Hindus wear. No, I just want to ask you. That's just one point, the kind of history we've been taught. So if we are trying to get rid of that mindset.
Did the Mughals unify? Did the Mughals run away? Or did they unify the country? Did they add to the GDP? That is the bigger question here. It is not about who came as invaders and who did not. The idea is
did
who
they fill their
contributed to
coffers?
the legacy. Today, the Taj Mahal, and the Mughal monuments that people flock to see. The foreign tourists is
Deshratan Nigam wants to come in.
What the fact is, Gaurav, the fact is that
Saira Shah Halim, I would want you to do a comparison, but Deshratan Nigam, go on, sir.
See, the fact is, nobody is denying that Mughals should be a part of history or not. Their barbarity, their rapes, all should be a part of history, but they cannot become a part of your heritage.
They are a part of history. Yes.
But they cannot be a part of your heritage. Please understand, they cannot be promoted as they glorified India. The GDP when the Mughals came in was about 33-34%. When the British took it over, it was 21%. Please understand, do your research. That is where the India went, and then subsequent decline by the British and the handshake with the Muslim League finally creating the Pakistan. We all have to understand it has to be brought to the people of this country, to the notice of this country, so that the decolonizing of the Indian mindset should take place, and that is where Prime Minister
Ajay Alok wants to come in.
has prompted.
Okay, Ajay Alok wants to come in. Sir, you wanted to come in and respond to Ms. Saira Shah Halim. Go on, sir.
Yeah, Gaurav, I just want to say to her that history is always his
Go on,
story.
Sir.
It could be his story, her story, whatever the story. But the present story is what we are seeing, that history has to be rewritten. We cannot glorify invaders. We cannot glorify those people who try to divide India, rather divided India. We cannot, the Britishers impose on us. It's time to get rid of that mindset and that mentality. And it's no tweaking of history. You were never right to the history. You were never right to the Indian cause.
That's a legacy.
All the
that's a
history
legacy
created
of
during the
Macaulay,
Congress
right?
period, the
Today you are able to
kind of
debate in
education
English,
imposed
that's a legacy
on
of
Indians,
Macaulay.
that you have to
Once
study
you
about this. You have to study about this and do not know our own forefathers who have done so much for this country. This was not history. This was your story, what you imposed on India. And now it's a time to write the real history. And
Sir,
it's a time
Saira Shah
that
Halim
our
wants to
generation
respond
should
to you.
know who Chandrasekhar Azad was,
Okay.
who Shahid Bhagat Singh was, what all contributions they had
so
to
one
this country.
second.
Okay, sir,
Shahid
that
That
is
is
no.
getting rid
Okay,
of the
Saira Shah
colonial
Halim wants to
mindset.
come in.
British had
Saira Shah
no
Halim.
contribution.
Go on.
A leftist and not some right winger here. He was a leftist. Let's be very clear. Do not try and appropriate his legacy for want of freedom fighters, because your political party clearly did not have any freedom fighters in history apart from Veer Savarkar. Okay, and that also he sought clemency from the British. So do not try and claim or appropriate the legacy of Shahid Bhagat Singh.
He
Shahid
never
Bhagat
sought
Singh
clemency
was
from the
a
British.
diehard
Clemency.
What you are trying to impose yourself.
You know,
if you want to talk about Subhash Chandra Bose, we
you know,
will talk.
those mercy letters were not
And as
written
per
just
me,
okay.
the first Prime Minister of this country
Okay,
was
go
Subhash
on,
Chandra
sir.
Bose.
Oh, the INA that was formed by Subhash Chandra Bose.
I
a
will
lot
say
of
the
them
history
joined
should
the
write
left
the first
parties
Prime
in
Minister of
India. Let us
independent
be very
India was
categorical
Subhash
here.
Chandra Bose, recognized by 5 countries.
Do you
But this was not
understand
taught
what
in our
Subhash
history.
One
Why?
by
Chandra
one.
Bose stood for?
One
Just
by
because the
one.
Congress and Muslim League were
Do you know
together
he stood
or for
secularism?
partition of...
Do you know he stood for Bengal? Do you know that he stood for the unity of people? Do you know that he was a very progressive leader? Please do not appropriate Subhash Chandra Bose or Shahid Bhagat Singh, not even in your dreams, for want of, what you call freedom fighters. Do not do that. Be very
You know,
pragmatic when you're looking at history.
the
No need
point
for
that the Prime
glorification,
Minister
but
was
history needs
referring
to be looked
to
at pragmatically.
with the Dharm Dhwaja that went up was decolonize our minds. Look at history from the perspective, or learn our own history, our own culture, our civilization. When we speak of Ram Rajya, what does that Ram Rajya mean? Everyone together. Who are these people who still want to divide us in our country? The British wanted to divide and rule. But who are those who want to divide and rule even today? That's an aspect, Saira Shah Halim, that really needs to be investigated, that keep dividing Hindus in various castes and keep winning. Is that a cause for concern? The Ram Rajya had everyone together for a noble cause.
See, I think it's time that we talk about unity rather than this whole divisive, policies of the current regime, which talks about caste and community and desh khatre mein hai and all that. I think it's time to talk about education. Talk about development, talk about children, talk about health, and talk about progress. Introduce people to the good things about India. Have international seminars, have a dialogue going, because if you look at it, the
Okay.
kind of tourism that
Okay,
is going
Ajay
on.
Alok wants to respond because I want to stay on facts. I want to stay on facts. Ajay Alok, you wanted to respond to Saira Shah Halim on the aspect that she says, look at where the best education system is coming from instead of the divisive politics, according to her, that's being followed today.
Well, the BJP and the Prime Minister never talked of divisive politics. We never talked of... What we are talking here is what actually India is. What is the essence of India? The essence of India is Hinduism. And what the Prime Minister is talking about. And Hinduism is to about unite. Unlike Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who keeps on speaking about OBC, Jati, how many Jati in media, how many Jati in bureaucracy. All these kinds of words are divisive. That needs to be changed. But that Jati does not go across the Muslim factor. That Jati does not go in Muslims, where we have to take care of Pasmandas. The Prime Minister has looked after Pasmandas, not Mr. Rahul Gandhi, because he treats them like a vote bank. This is what is divisive politics. Keep on dividing people and keep on uniting yourself. This is not real India. You have to talk of real India in today's term and where we want to be in 2047.
Last 30 seconds.
We want
the
to be
last
a
30
developed
seconds I have
nation
on this
by
part of the show.
2047. And that is
Deshratan
the
Nigam.
vision and that is the essence.
Okay. Deshratan Nigam, the last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show. The Dharm Dhwaja going up today, will it be seen just as, a moment where Hindus think that it's a big thing that's happened, or do you look at it as a civilizational moment for Bharat?
Gaurav, in fact, Ram sabke hain. It's a civilization movement for both Hindus, Muslims, Christians, who are all Indians. And therefore, to look at from a narrow perspective by certain political parties or the communists will not do it, will not cut ice with the people. The fact remains, when people talk about Bhagat Singh, NCRT books called him a terrorist. Please understand that, rather than a revolutionary. Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Patel, they were icons, but they were never given a due recognition. We do not appropriate them, but we are giving them due recognition, which was due, long overdue. After 60, 65, 70 years, they are getting their due place. And therefore, icons, they are icons. And what? They are beyond Gandhi family. If a family can give Bharat Ratna to itself, it speaks high about what they are and what they are were about to do to India.
So a debate very clearly has been triggered by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but here Ayodhya right now is truly Rammay. The Dharm Dhwaja has gone up, celebrations are happening. It's again very auspicious because this is the day when Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram and Devi Sita, Mata Sita got married. So there is one Bharat after the other that's expected in just moments from now. Some have started, some more to happen. So celebrations have started. The message of Ram Rajya is something we'll be tracking very, very closely.